Just when you think the source material has been bled dry, there comes more sweet, sweet crimson nectar. Or irony ick. Have you ever tasted blood? It's really gross. I mean, not that I've tasted blood I've tasted blood, but not to drink it. I mean, you get a tooth pulled or something, you've tasted blood, right? Anyway, before this intro goes totally off the rails, I bid you welcome to my review. Too late.
I am a hopeless Dracula disciple. I have read the novel. I proudly own and display the 1931 film with Bela Lugosi. I watch Bram Stoker's Dracula every couple of years, sometimes more. I even have this ridiculous little pencil sharpener on my desk, which I absolutely love. And not that this has anything to do with movies, but I have even researched the real Vlad Tepes, by which Count Dracula was inspired. You see a theme here? I love Dracula. But even I won't lower myself to just any old Dracula movie. In fact, I've turned off certain films because they didn't quite get him right. It's very personal with me, and I'm all for unique approaches, but you'd better get it right. That's why it's with such joy that I talk about this entry into the Dracula canon. Netflix plus BBC equals the freshest take on old Drac since Gary Oldman, only without the geisha hair. What was with that anyway? But where do I begin? First, the character himself. Played by the dark-featured and handsome Claes Bang, this personification of the Count is a salute to the unparalleled Bela Lugosi, but only in physical appearance, and only when he's young. We are greeted with an eerie and dingy old man with a heavy accent and scratchy voice. As time goes by, we see him growing younger, while Mr. Harker physically declines. When he is as young as he was when he became a vampire, we get to know a smooth-voiced smartass with a very dark and dry sense of humor. Hence the scene in which he tells John Harker repeatedly that there is no baby as he carries a crying baby around the room while they talk. Sadly, things do not turn out well for the baby. Then there are times he is irresistible, like when he charms the elderly Duchess on the Demeter. Granted, he fatally feeds off a Bavarian sailor in order to brush up on his German to communicate with her, but even that was smooth. Then there are other times when he's a pure beast, enslaved in his thirst for blood. In a particularly noteworthy scene, Dracula stands nude outside of a convent as a nun splashes her own blood on him, to which he cannot resist licking, and then calls him out for being weak. This was one of my favorite scenes. Something else noteworthy about this character before I move on is that when he feeds on Harker, over time his English becomes perfect and without a trace of a Romanian accent. Oh, but he still pronounces Wallachia right. There are no excuses, people. Now, let's get into the story. There were some bold moves here, like the choice to do most of the first 2 episodes in flashback. That's all I'll say for now, as I don't wish to spoil such a new addition to the franchise, but I will say that the makers of this version made some audacious choices with story here, and not everyone I've spoken to appreciated it. I have mixed feelings about this myself, but I think they barely pulled it off by extremely well thought out characters. A memorable choice was the exploration of what happened on the Demeter. This whole sequence was put together like a mystery or thriller. Of course, you know who it was that was feasting on the passengers, but it was still fun to watch it all unfold. And it was another opportunity to watch Dracula's character develop, and that's always fun. This version of Dracula by far has the coolest castle. It even has its own backstory, which to my knowledge was not an element in any other Dracula movie. It was huge and cave-like. Another thing about it that I found to be of particular interest was that the overall footprint of the castle and the landscape on which it sat resembled the very real ruins of Ponari Castle, the place the real-life Dracula called home. Not this. This. While Dracula may have spent time in Bran Castle, it was not his primary residence, though it does make a great tourist trap. Furthermore, if you compare Ponari Castle to the novel, you will conclude that Ponari was most likely the influence Bram Stoker used for Count Dracula's castle, and that gives this movie more credibility. Listen, when it comes to literary and film critics, Dracula is almost as polarizing as politics, and like politics, I stay away from the ugliness. What I will say that'll hopefully smooth things over a bit is that, love it or hate it, this version of the terrifying and timeless tale was executed with thought and passion for the source material, and that cannot be ignored in its overall critique.
So admittedly, I held back a bit on that review because I really didn't want to spoil it. However, there's a lot more to cover, and so if you want me to do another video, a part 2, then I'll be happy to. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll do one that's a little more thorough. There will be spoilers, but we'll cover everything. Anyway, as of the publication of this video, this channel is pretty new and pretty small as well. Therefore, if you leave a comment that has a request in it, and you're the only one, I might just fulfill your request. So take advantage of that while you can. Anyway, see you next week.